Hello. I have something that I want to share today. Some personal stuff that has been on my heart this morning and all day yesterday. Um, I posted a picture recently of me and my husband at church, just kind of really close to each other and smiling. And it was a good picture of us. So I sent it to my father in law, who is not on social media. So I sent it to him in a text, and he said something about, I really like when you guys sing together and you hold hands, and I love getting pictures of you guys, send me more. It doesn't have to just be of the kid, the grandkids and stuff. And he knows what we've been through in the last, 12 years that we've been married, and even before that with dating. He knows about everything that's gone on, but a lot of other people don't. But I wrote back to him and I just said, hey, I'm really surprised that my marriage turned into what it is. We do really love each other, but many years ago, my exact words were, my marriage was a giant turd fest, and it wasn't a good situation. And however I worded it at the end, I said, if you want to ever quote that, you can, because I know he's just dying to use the word turd fest in public. But anyway, I don't want to give people the false impression that my marriage has always been what it is today. And today it is great. We're best friends. We, love each other more than we ever thought we could. When we made vows that we totally didn't understand when we were, 17. I was 17 and he was 20, I think. And, it took us a lot of grief and drama to get where we are today. And so I just thought maybe there was somebody else who was in the middle of all that kind of stuff, or just wanted to know that they're not alone, or to hear what made it better and they can work on it. Or I don't know. I just feel like if God let me go through this thing and let me feel everything that I felt, and is putting it on my heart right now, that maybe there is somebody that needs to hear somebody's story. So I just want to share mine. Obviously, I met Brandon very young. If I got married at 17, I met him when I was 15. And I obviously was not serving the Lord then. And so I just was very void and empty. I tried to fill it with a lot of things. And then, of course, when I met Brandon, I tried to make him, my rescuer from everything that I felt like was going on wrong in my life. And we wanted to get married right away. And even dating, we had a lot of issues. We were both very selfish. He had just gotten kicked out of Bible college. He was rebelling. He lived on his own, so he was doing whatever he wanted to do. I still lived with my mom, but I still, did a lot of things that I'm not going to get into in case my mom ever watches this. Anyways, but we were just selfish people. And so getting married, I don't know, we thought that we were going to strive for this American dream. We're going to get a house and we're going to get married and we're going to have a kid and we're going to be happy with all that, but that's not how it worked out. We, all through dating, we fought and just basically screamed at each other constantly. And we both made huge mistakes constantly. And it almost was like we really just didn't care, because we kind of were just stuck together. And so we just kept on going through this cycle. And so we ended up really, I don't know if I would say that we hated each other, but we weren't on good terms. And, there were many nights that I would go and vent to my friends, which, just a little insert there, my friends were also family at the time, and they loved Brandon and they wouldn't have judged him for anything. But looking back on it now, and as a, for the last, 10 years or whatever, it is so important not to share your drama with other people. Even if it is someone who loves that person. I really never shared any kind of stuff like that about what we were going through with my mom, because my mom didn't know Brandon like some other people knew him, and I didn't want her opinion of him to change based on something temporary that I was going through. If I only ever called her and told her bad news, then she would have hated him, and so I didn't do that. And I think it's really important that people not blast whatever their spouse is doing wrong, on Facebook or just to other friends, because you're not telling your friends all the wonderful things they've ever done for you. You're just calling to vent about the horrible things. And of course, their opinion on that person's going to change, and they don't love them like you do. So even if your opinion changes, they're still going to think bad things about them. So anyway, But I was young and I was stupid, and that's what we did. We would all get together and just like talk about our husbands because we were turds. And so, you know, a couple of years into marriage, I think after, like, I had gotten pregnant with Jude, and this is when we got back in church and stuff, you know, just because you get back, you know, we got our lives right, but that didn't fix everything right away. You know, we still were reaping a lot of what we sowed. And so things would come up out of the past, and it was really difficult for me. I feel like Brandon didn't have such a hard time with it, but like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's a woman thing in general. I just overanalyze everything. You know, I was the kind of person that like checked his phone constantly, or like if he was 5 minutes late coming home from work, like, where did you go? Where did you stop at? What were you doing? And it's like, what was he going to do in 5 minutes? Whatever. I was so insecure about myself that I just always thought the worst. Or like even little things, like I didn't even want to be alone. Like if he wanted to go do something else, like go hunting, or I don't even remember things that he used to do. But if he wanted to go do something on his own, it was always, well, you don't love me because you want to go do this thing more than you want to hang out with me or whatever. And I just was so insecure. It had nothing to do with him and the choices he was making. It wasn't wrong for him to want to go do those things. But I just felt like if he doesn't want to be around me all the time, then he must not love me as much as I love him, because I wanted to be around him all the time. And I think that's just like a woman thing. But it was a tool that the devil used very well to just derail me constantly. Even when we were in church, you know, we had come back in 2009, and for years, I just struggled with my thought life constantly. Every second of every day was just consumed with thinking of the past and being hurt all over again, even though things were done and gone, and, you know, I had said that I forgave him for things or whatever. Like, it was on my mind constantly, and I would constantly make him pay for it. You know, if I was having a bad day and he came home and tried to kiss me and say, hey, I love you, it's good to be home, or whatever, I would just, like, is it really? Like, I don't know. I just constantly was making him pay for it. And that wasn't right on my part either. Like, he was trying to serve the Lord and do right, and I couldn't change how I felt about it. And so I felt like totally helpless. And, you know, even people today talk about like, oh, you guys hold hands when you sing, or you guys, you know, we joke and always say like, man, people are jealous of us. They want a marriage like ours. And I believe that that's true, that we do have a good marriage and that people should want what we have. But when we did first come back to church, I remember there being times where I was so mad at him over past things that weren't even going on right now or anything. And he'd like try to hold my hand in church, and I'd be like pulling away from him. And I tried not to make a huge scene about it, but like anybody who would look at us would have been able to see it. But I just, these thoughts consumed my life. And so I tried to pray about it. I begged God, and we even went and tried to get help from a pastor friend of ours, and that did really help a lot. And so a couple of years into this whole thing of us still not having a good marriage, I was really frustrated because I thought, I'm a Christian now. Like, my marriage should be perfect. Why would, you know, what's the point of giving my life to God if my marriage is still going to be horrible or whatever? And I learned through a very long time. This was definitely not like an overnight thing. And I feel so bad for people who ask me marital advice and things like that, because the sucky answer is that it's not an overnight thing. It's not even a it's not even a week thing. I mean, it's something that you're going to struggle with for a long time. And then you're just going to wake up one day and realize you got it. And it sucks to have to tell people that, honestly. I hate that some people feel like they're having such a problem with their thought life or their marriage or whatever's going on. And I can't just give you like a quick fix, but I can tell you the things that led me to the place I am now, which I can honestly say, like, that kind of stuff, I mean, maybe like once a year something will pop into my head, but I've recognized it now for what it is. And so it's easy for me to be like, oh, that's just the devil trying to mess with me. Like, it's not even a big deal. You know, that's not the truth. That's just a lie that my mind is trying to, you know, get me stuck on and things. But the few things that really did help me at that time, when we had gone to get counseling from our friend, I was reading a lot of Psalms. Anytime I have like a really hard time in my life, I read Psalms, because I feel like David poured his heart out, and that's what I feel like I want to do, but I can't always think of the right words to pour my heart out to God. So when I read Psalms, it helps me to think of those things. And so I picked up my Bible when we were at the place where we were at, and I read Psalm 62, and it talks about lead me, or he only is my rock, my salvation, my defense. And he's talking about God, obviously. I shall not be greatly moved. And then it's talking to, he's talking about his enemies, and he's saying that they do all these things. They lie and they love cursing, and they, just all these things that these enemies are doing to him. And in my mind, back when I read this, I just thought like, Brandon's my enemy, which is totally untrue and illogical. But back then, I felt like he was my enemy because I felt like he didn't have my heart in mind. And I back then I would have said like, all I want is for him to want to make me happy. All I want is for him to love me. I want him to feel this way about me. But now that I've learned a lot, more than I want Brandon to ever please me or make me happy or love me, I want him to love God, because if he loves God the way he's supposed to, then he'll do all those things for me. If he loves God the way he's supposed to, he'll live a life that pleases me. He'll live a life where he loves his wife the correct way, where that's what he does. And you have to realize it's not about what he does for you or how much he loves you. Your marriage isn't going to get better until you both put God first and he's the thing that you're striving for. Because if you make God happy, then just by default, your marriage is going to be better. If you do things that please the Lord, you're going to be a better parent. If you do things that please the Lord, your life is going to just naturally be something that you can be proud of and be happy with and enjoy. And so, my goal over time has been, I don't check and see like, well, is he doing things to make me happy? Is he writing messages to people that are going to make me unhappy? Is he doing these things? And I don't think in those terms anymore. All I care about, when we got back home from where we were with this counseling thing, we wrote in his Bible, what's the most important thing to you? And the answer, we talked about it. Like, it's not family. It's not my wife. It's not my marriage. The most important thing is God. And that was going to be like his reminder every morning to put God first, because then just naturally he'll be the man he's supposed to be. And it goes the same for the wife too, but at the time, this was a big ordeal that we were going through over some stuff that he had done in his past. So that's why we're focusing on him in this conversation. But it goes both ways. You can't be the wife you're supposed to be. You can't please your husband unless your first goal is to please God. So after I was reading Psalms, and it was talking about, in Psalm 62, it says, he only is my rock, my salvation, my defense. I feel like for a very long time, I made Brandon all those things for me. He was supposed to be the thing that made my life better, because when I married him, like, I was just trying to fill a void, And so even when I was a Christian, it was really hard to switch those roles and try to put God in the place where I had put Brandon. He was the thing that was supposed to make me happy. He was the thing that was supposed to keep me safe and never hurt me. And that's not how it's supposed to be. I put way too much burden on him that was totally undeserved. I don't want him to ever hurt me and do these things, but I had my trust in the wrong person. I can't rely on whether or not Brandon's ever going to hurt me, because he's a man, he's a human, he's flesh, and he can hurt me. I want to put my trust in the one who can't do those things to me, and the one who it's supposed to be in, because then I trust that even if I go through hurtful things, I'm going to be okay, because he's the rock, and he's my defense, and he's my shield, and all these kinds of things. And so when he says over and over again, in 61 and 62 of Psalms, he says over and over again that the word only is in there. He only is my rock. And so I learned a lot through those that, I really am putting Brandon on too much of a pedestal. It can't be all about him. He's not carrying whether or not I'm happy in life. It needs to be based on God and what, do I trust God to handle the situation if someone does hurt me? And so that was a really hard lesson to learn. And again, it wasn't overnight. It was like over a year that I, really had to put this into practice. It was not something that was really naturally or easily, done for me. And so I heard about this method where they call it the rubber band technique or method or something. And it's when someone has OCD or anxiety, and they wear, I don't have one, or I would show you, but they put a rubber band on their wrist or a hair tie or something. And if they think about something like, okay, so a picture frame is crooked and I have OCD. Like, I really want to go over and fix that picture frame. It's like ruining my day if I can't fix that picture frame. But I need to understand that that's not a healthy thought, and I need to work around it instead of fixing it. So they would flick the rubber band on their wrist to like help them remember, this is not a healthy thought. This isn't the truth. Your life will go on even if this is not corrected. You need to learn to let it go. And so they would flick the rubber band every time they had these thoughts. And so it became a habit, a new habit, instead of just letting this, completely consume their life as like, I have to fix this or I'm not okay. And so they would flick the rubber band. And so I tried to do something really similar. Anytime I had thoughts of the past or feeling like that he doesn't have my best interests in mind, or and all these untrue things that were going on, I would immediately try to think of the truth and tell myself, it's not about what he does to me. Do I trust God? Do I trust that God's going to take care of me even if someone else does hurt me? Do I trust that, that God's got it all under control? And so anytime I had those thoughts, I would try to immediately think of those things and try to replace those thoughts. And I'm telling you, it was like a year. It was not an overnight thing. And over time, I had less and less thoughts. I mean, I'm not joking you when I tell you it consumed my life. Every 5 minutes of a day, I had these horrible thoughts about my marriage and about my relationship and about being hurt and all this kind of stuff. And it was constant and my life was miserable. And then it became, every 10 minutes. And then 2 weeks later, it was every 15 minutes. And then a month later, it was once an hour. And then, we're talking like 1, 2, 3 years later, once a year I maybe have those thoughts. And I still have the rubber band technique of, are these true things? Or is this the devil trying to derail me? Or, whatever the situation may be. And so that, in addition to, I read a couple books about marriage, and for the longest time, I prayed, God, you have to fix him. He's the problem here. You need to fix his heart. You need to fix his mind. You need to make him, punish him for this, blah, blah, blah. And my prayers were all about him. And I got this book. I actually found it in my father-in-law's office. And I don't even know why I picked it up, because it doesn't say anything about like what your husband needs to do to be a better person, but it's called Created to Be His Helpmeet by Debbie Pearl. Now, everything in it is not KJV, and it, I'm not saying that you can't learn from people who don't use KJV. You definitely can. I learned from this lady, but if someone has a problem with that, it's not all KJV verses in here. But anyways, I picked up this book. Again, I'm not really even sure why, because I was like, I don't need to work on me. I'm doing fine. Like, it's all his problem. He needs to work on him. I should have bought him a book about being a better husband. But instead, I picked this up and I started reading it. And it says, discover how God can make your marriage glorious. And I was like, this lady is tripping. So I started reading, and like within the first chapter, I was like, this lady has lost her mind. And I just thought, I'm not the one with the problem. This lady's ridiculous. And I was cracking up about all the things she was saying about like, oh, you need to just be lovely to your husband. And even when he is a turd, you have to, forgive him and be like this and whatever. And I was like, this lady is full on insane. And every night though, I was like, I gotta see what this lady has to say, because she's lost her mind. And I kept reading and it made me so angry. Because I was like, I'm not the problem. Why is this lady talking about, in this book, it even talks about men who have like cheated on their wives and the men have done crazy things. And the wife is like, well, what can I do to help him? And I'm like, set him on fire? Like, what do you mean, what can you do to help him? He's the one who made the mistake. And honestly, by the time I got to the end of this book, it had changed my thought process on that whole thing dramatically. Like, men are still capable of making their own decisions and whatnot, but you have to take responsibility for your part of the relationship. I took responsibility for my part of the relationship when I realized I was putting such a burden on him to be all the things that I wanted God to be, that I needed God to be for my life. And I didn't trust Brandon. How was he ever going to prove to me that he could be trusted when I never put trust in him to live his life? And, I really took a look at the things that I was doing. And again, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to not like check up on him and wonder where he is whenever he was late, or, you know, wonder why he didn't want to be around me. That wasn't easy. Not that he didn't want to be around me. That sounded bad. I mean, wanted to go to, like, if he wanted to go to the store, look at, you know, hunting stuff or whatever, like, I needed to realize, like, I don't have to be in every second of his life. And it was so exhausting, seriously, to follow him around and, like, watch everything he did, read everything that he ever wrote, like, to make sure that he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, like, playing a little spy and doing all this stuff. It was exhausting, and I wasn't happy doing that. I just felt like I needed to, or my marriage would fall apart. And that's not the kind of marriage you should have, because if that's what you're doing, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be exhausted, and you're just going to nitpick and find every little stupid thing, and it's just ridiculous. And so I worked on it. You know, she has questions and stuff she answers, and so I would answer them honestly and write them down and whatnot. And, you know, I just really tried hard to work on me. And I didn't try so hard to fix Brandon. And I can honestly say that that is what made our marriage better. Now, a long time ago, he made the choice, like, I'm not going to do these stupid things. But the problem wasn't him at that point. He had made his decision that he was going to be the right kind of man and be a good Christian guy. At that point, it was my problem, because I was the one who couldn't let it go. And I was the one who was just having a horrible time with it. And so our marriage was still bad because of me and the things that I was bringing up constantly. And so I don't know. I hopefully some of that advice can help somebody, but I just want to let people know, or let somebody know that's struggling. You know, there's going to be a time when things are better. There is, but it's not going to be overnight. And it takes a lot of prayer, and it takes a lot of effort on your part. It can't just be that, you know, your husband made a mistake and so now you're waiting on him to make it right. That's not the key to a good marriage. It's about you putting in just as much effort, even if you feel like you've done nothing wrong. You know, you just have to remember the reason you married the person, you know, is it should be a relationship where you guys are best friends. And, you know, but I wouldn't treat my best friend the way that I treated him during the first couple years of our marriage. And anyway, it's not, like I said, an overnight thing, but just keep trying at it, and, you know, keep trying to push those thoughts away that don't belong in your life, because they don't make his life miserable. They're not helping. The only person they're making miserable is you. I mean, through you can make your husband miserable, I guess, but those thoughts just don't have any place in a Christian's life. And I know that they're there. I know that they're not easy to get rid of. I'm not saying anybody's a bad Christian if they feel that way. It's just something that you have to recognize and you have to work at to stop, or it's not going to get better. And I can say now, like I said earlier, you know, things are like 100% better than they were before, just because I've tried to put these things into practice for the last few years. And, you know, if anybody has any questions, or, I don't know, wants me to explain myself because I maybe didn't make sense at some point in this video, I don't know, then just message me, or, you know, you can get a hold of me in many different ways. But I just hope I was able to be clear on my thoughts. I don't know. I hope.